Today on Here for the Right Reasons, Clayton Echard reveals why being the boring bachelor isn't so bad.
5 years from now, people, the boring will maybe be attached to him, but it just won't matter. I mean, the sting goes over time.
Kayla Miller-Keys reveals Dean wants a vasectomy before kids. Zach talks about his conversation with Rachel Recchia, and Caitlyn Bristowe calls out a Bachelor editing mistake. Plus, we recap the latest episode of The Bachelor. We've got that plus so much more on today's Here for the Right Reasons. Hey guys, Christina Garibaldi here with Us Weekly Deputy Editor Sarah Heron. Sarah, welcome to week 6.
I think week 6, the COVID of it all really throws it off too, because Greer was MIA this episode and we're sending people home. So I can't even really figure out how many we're down to, 8 or 9, 7.
But I feel like hometowns are right around the corner. So we're definitely getting there. And I feel like people had a lot to say about this week's episode. And so we're going to dive into it in just a minute. But a lot of people had a lot to say about last week's episode, including Diane, who says, "This is my favorite season, so I don't like hearing how people don't like it. It is finally a really serious pursuit of a partner." True.
Yeah, I think that was the goal. They set out, in my opinion, watching it just from half the time I watch the show, I'm just wondering what the producers are thinking, what's not the agenda, but what's the plan here? And I think it's very obvious to me from the beginning that Zach was set up to be a serious bachelor. I think he is serious about it. And I think they want to make it work. And I also think that makes sense based on what we're seeing in the previews for Sex Week, in which he's not planning to sleep with anyone, which Matt James didn't sleep with anyone either, but they didn't make that a storyline for him, but they're showing it for us for Zach. And I think that's because our boy Clayton, who we'll get to also in a little bit, fumbled a bit around that department.
Just a little bit. Petal says people love the drama, but the contestants have been taking it more seriously the last couple of seasons. It becomes more real. No problem for me. Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about that. A lot of people, it's been so much drama the past couple of seasons that we kind of forgot about the love stories. But I feel like we are missing a little bit of drama this season, though.
Yeah, I always say, I always want what I can't have, right? When they're being too mean, I'm like, this is catty. It's not fun to watch. When they're being too nice, I'm like, I want some catty. I actually liked this episode because speaking of cat, we got a little bit of just something to debate, of the rules of the show and whether that was the right move. I like that. And I also think we're seeing a very genuine connections forming. So I think we're getting a little bit of both this episode.
Yes, I totally agree with you. I actually enjoyed this episode as opposed to a lot of the other ones. And then finally, Joanne says, Gabby is my favorite. She's so beautiful, sweet, and funny. Yeah, I feel like we're starting to figure out who could be our front runners for The Bachelorette going forward as well.
I definitely agree with that.
All right, let's get into the news of the week. And Caitlyn Miller-Keys and Dean, they are always making some sort of headlines. Caitlyn revealed that Dean has offered to get a vasectomy before the couple has kids. During the Help I Suck at Dating podcast, she said, "I don't know if Dean's talked about this on the podcast, but he really wants to get a vasectomy before we have kids. He wants to get a vasectomy because he doesn't think it's fair that a woman has to take birth control. So then when we're ready to have kids, he would unsnip himself and we would have children." Their friend Jared, who of course, Bachelor Nation star Jared, he seems surprised by this offer, which I'm sure a lot of people were. Jared said that's very nice of him, but at the same time, is there any downside? Does it hurt the potential of having kids if you reverse it? She said, we both need to research this more, but also I heard there could be pain that's involved if you get a vasectomy. And so I was like, I don't want you to be in pain. He and Bob Guinea were talking about it. Even after you heal, there could potentially just be everyday pain. I don't know about this one.
Dean and Caitlyn fascinate me. I mean, they endlessly deliver just plot twists and discussion topics. And I think good for them, do their own thing. I mean, part of me is wow, Dean, that's kind of amazing. It is true. It is bullshit or BS, sorry, that, women have to take birth control. But at the same time, it's I really just hope that this isn't Dean's life trying to get a vasectomy.
And getting out of having kids. I mean, I do appreciate him, like you said, being okay, it's not fair for a woman to have to go through everything. When I was having kids, I felt the same way. But I mean, this is this is a procedure. You're getting something snipped. It's not sometimes always, I have no idea if it's easy to unsnip it and what the, the potential repercussions of that could be. But, to each their own, I guess.
I know. Thank you for constantly delivering though, Kaitlyn and Dean. Like, I applaud you. I think you're fascinating. I think you are like just a wild couple to watch. And I'm happy for them. I enjoy always seeing what's going to happen next with those two. I feel like their wedding could have some like interesting elements maybe that we wouldn't expect. Just even the fact that they were wearing wedding rings like all these years, just like for fun. So, but also on that podcast, Jade was the special guest, and she revealed that Seal did not want to perform at her and Tanner's wedding. I remember where I was in 2016 on Valentine's Day watching The Bachelor 20, a celebration of love, which kind of doubled as a Ben Higgins is The Bachelor. Let's get all these people together, celebrate 20 seasons of The Bachelor, but also let's watch Jade and Tanner get married on Valentine's Day because they were obviously a very popular couple for Bachelor in Paradise. 7 years later, which is crazy, Jade revealed that there was a little bit of behind the scenes drama with Seal. She said, Matt Nathanson was playing when I walked down the aisle, and we knew that one. But producer Elon Gale was like, I want to keep it a surprise for who's going to be your first song as husband and wife. Our wedding was stalled by 2 hours. And that's why everyone was so drunk by the time I walked down the aisle, because they were just feeding everybody liquor. And I heard it was because Seal was like giving them drama. He was like in the bathroom and refusing to come out and didn't want to play for us.
That's amazing. I wonder if they like told Seal like, oh, you're going to be like, or like what they kind of pitched this as. Like, maybe I guess when he found out that he was playing for The Bachelor, he was like, absolutely not. This is not for me.
That's like that's the only thing this could be, right? Like,
right?
Learned there under false circumstances, or like saw all the Bachelor people there and was like, what is this? It was like so cliche and ridiculous that they had Seal sing Kiss by a Rose or whatever at this wedding. And it's even funnier that like he didn't want to do it. Like you'd think he would also like just play into it at this point. Like obviously Seal, you know, was famous, well known, but like I haven't heard a Seal song in a long time. So this was a way to be like, oh, Seal, you know, get some exposure. So it's just funny.
So funny. I love that story so much. Well, Zach, as we know, he has been bringing up Rachel's name throughout the season of The Bachelor, but he actually told us that they are on good terms. He said during the taping of the Women Tell All, he told us she actually reached out and she sent a very sweet message and she's very supportive. It was a very nice message. I'm very happy. As we know, they kind of buried the hatchet during her after the final rose, but like I said, he threw some shade at her during the season. She actually tweeted last week, let's all be mindful and extend a little bit of compassion and grace towards the leads of the show. I guess now he realizes what she kind of was going through. And, you know, I'm glad everybody's on good terms. No drama here.
Yeah. They definitely exchanged blows a little bit on the Almost Famous podcast. Like Zach was on and he was answering questions about that comment in the premiere. He told us about it. And then Rachel responded and was like, I don't understand why he's saying all this stuff. Like, why is he still accusing me of like being an actor? Like, I would think he would have more empathy for me now that he's been in this position. And then I think maybe because Zach has been getting a little bit of backlash about being boring or whatever, people are just mean on the internet. Maybe Rachel was like, you know what? It's not worth it for me to be piling on or to be involved in that. So I'm going to take the high road. And like, good for Rachel, the tweet, the whatever message, like she doesn't owe Zach anything. So I think that was the nice thing to do.
Definitely.
Moving on, Kaitlyn Bristowe. She's always, you know, getting involved. Love her for it. She revealed some alleged big insider scoop on her podcast, Off the Vine. When we saw Zach, so this is recap everyone, when we saw Zach last week in London and he got COVID and they had the first ever virtual rose ceremony, Kaitlyn is claiming that not all the footage of him being sick was actually shot in the UK. She said when they show B-roll of Zach, and he doesn't really look like he's doing too bad, despite the dramatic footage of him blowing his nose. You remember, he's like in his hotel room, in bed, blowing his nose. He's got a little fake cup of tea. That's a hotel in LA. According to Kaitlyn, it's the hotel they always put all their people in when they do After the Final Rose, Women Tell All, Men Tell All. That's where we stay. It's a very specific bed that has writing on the back. So she obviously picked up, she's like, I've been in that room, which is kind of hilarious. She went on to explain that she thinks producers made the decision to film the extra shot saying they must have been like, oh, we need some B-roll of Zach looking sick. They got back to LA. They're like, get in that bed, blow your nose, hold your cup of tea. She joked that she finds the switch up funny and admitted she was slightly jealous that Zach's sickness allotted him some time off from being a Bachelor.
Well, I mean, they have to like, you know, do their due diligence, make sure they get the shots that they need. And sometimes they have to go back and do some pickups. I feel like that's normal in any like TV show, but it is funny that, you know, this is like the hotel room that everybody always used to.
Yeah, I thought it was funny too. It's a little, it's like a silly enough, but like interesting insight look into reality television. Like it's nothing damaging, but it's a reminder that what you see is not always what you think on television, whether it's something as simple as new B-roll or something friggin' bit to turn into something it's not.
Totally. All right. Well, let's move on to our Bachelor talk. And you had a really great chat with former Bachelor Clayton, right?
Yes, I had a very lengthy talk with Clayton. If you're looking for something to listen to, I have over an hour with him on the podcast this week, talking about his new book, talking about his season, talking about Susie, talking about Rachel, and of course about Zach. He has been in touch with Zach, who has been labeled boring. And as Clayton pointed out, people called me boring until they decided to call me the worst. So maybe Zach should be okay with the boring label. And here's what he had to say about that.
Have you spoken to him at all? And like, what do you say to the boring Bachelor? Would you like, do you want to be boring or do you want to be the controversial Bachelor? Like, what's better? What's worse?
Well, I did make that comment to him because I was the boring Bachelor until I wasn't in the last 3 episodes.
Right.
And so I felt that. And for me personally, I hated the word boring because I had an insecurity of not feeling good enough when I was younger and always being a people pleaser. And so boring was probably the worst word you could ever call me. And so it really hurt. It stung when I was called the boring Bachelor. But what I found out was I would rather be known as the boring Bachelor than known as the piece of what, or the D-bag Bachelor, or the terrible human being. Like, I'd rather people just call me boring than start to attack my character and say that I'm a terrible human being. And so I did mention that to him. I said, hey, being the boring Bachelor, it's not fun, but if you're confident in who you are, it won't sting you as much as it did me. But you'll be a lot happier to walk away with a genuine love connection or with just an experience and being known as boring than being, absolutely thrown and fed to the wolves and torn apart and going through this mental struggle of people telling you to kill yourself and all this negativity. I'm like, dude, boring. You'll be so grateful to be boring at the end of it all. So just trust me on that. And he was, he seems to have a great head on his shoulders. And he said, listen, man, if boring's the worst thing I'm called, then I'd say it was a success. So so I think he's handling it very well. And I'm proud of him. And I think he's done an incredible job from what I've seen. And you know what, at the end of the day, if he continues to just be himself, he'll be grateful for the whole thing and he'll have a story to tell. And 5 years from now, people, boring will maybe be attached to him, but it just won't matter. I mean, the sting goes over time.
He's so right. Boring's not so bad.
It's so true. When I was talking to Clayton, I realized like the way we glamorize in Bachelor Nation, I include myself in this, whatever lead is in front of us, we think back like, oh, I wish, people have the audacity to be like, I miss Peter. Like Peter's season was so good. Like Peter's season was good because it was dramatic, but when Peter's season was airing, everyone acted like he had committed a crime.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And the same thing happened with Clayton. And now people are like telling Clayton they want him back. And it's like, no, you don't. All you told me was that you wanted a love story. And that's what Zach's giving you. So we always want what we can't have. And I do that too. So it's just like, I think the way this fan base works.
Yeah, no. And it's you have a great conversation with him. And I love how he talks so much about life post Bachelor too, and how it wasn't what he thought it was going to be. Like he didn't get these millions of Instagram followers, these millions of, sponsorship deals and things like that. He had to work really hard once he got off the show and kind of prove people wrong. So it seems like this maybe in the long run wasn't the best thing for him. He didn't get the love story that he wanted, didn't maybe get the lucrative deals that he wanted. So it seems like he's in like an interesting place in his life at the moment.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think he is really trying to look on the positive side and look at all the growth he did. And that's kind of where his book takes you through. Like the things he's learned, he doesn't believe that he might have ever learned if he didn't go through this like tumultuous experience about his mental health, about his body dysmorphia, about life in general, about the kind of person he wants to be. So I admire him for being so positive and trying really hard to find like this light and silver lining. And that's now how he like views life. And I think that's really like admirable. Yeah. But it is also interesting that in the days of when you came off the show as Peter and got all this backlash, you still got 1 million followers. And I know Peter went back to work and works as a pilot, but like Clayton has a negative things associated to his name when you Google him and doesn't get to be an influencer and didn't find the one. So it's like kind of always been this trade-off of when, you know, people are ripping you apart, and there's negative things attached to your name. Like the brands on Instagram don't care about that. Like they're still going to work with you, but like a real company might not want to hire the Bachelor who openly slept with 2 people and did this or that. Like it's hard to go back to real life. So that's why the Instagram thing almost was like a trade-off.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, imagine poor Kaitlyn Bristowe. She was like slut shamed a lot. And if she didn't have her platform that she has now, like would she have been able to get a regular job so easily? I don't know. Like it's something to think about, food for thought.
It really is. And he made the good point too of being like, are people going to be more hesitant now to even want to take this position, want to take this lead? Because what do you really gain if you're not getting that love story at the end of this? What are you really gaining from this besides the ridicule and the social media hate? So it's a really interesting conversation. So everybody go take a listen to it on the Here for the Right Reasons podcast. All right, well, let's get into our recap of this week's episode. You know, what did you think about Kat pulling Zach before the one-on-one date with Charity? Was that the wrong move, considering they hadn't seen him in a while because of COVID?
I mean, it's both, right? Like, I do understand, like, this is the time, I guess, to be aggressive, but you have to own the move. That's what I don't like. If you're going to do this, you have to expect backlash. You have to expect Charity, who seems very sweet and loved in the house, to have women standing up for her and for her to be a little peeved. And I think if you're going to do this, you have to be confident about it, and you can't say that and then play the victim that now people are being mean to you. Like it's a risk. If it's a risk you think is worth it to progress your relationship with Zach, I don't know how this 1 minute is going to change anything, but it is a risk. And I think Ariel, who came out as like the unsung hero of this episode, put it so well when she was like, the respect level never goes away. Like no one said what you like made this whatever mistake, but like we feel disrespected by it. And that doesn't change because of the circumstances of Zach having COVID. And I think that is true.
It's so true. No, I respected her in that moment for not being like, well, yeah, no, that was like an okay move. No, she like pretty much put her in her place and being like, no, you have to expect that people are going to be mad that you did this because it wasn't right. It was Charity's day. And, you know, she had a one-on-one canceled and this was her, you know, rescheduled day. And like you said, what's that 1 minute really going to do? Right. It's just going to put a sour taste in everybody's mouth. Yes, probably producers were like, go get Zach. And that's probably why it happened. But still, it's not the right move to do.
And also imagine if like, it would make more sense if like Kat got the one-on-one and Charity didn't. And then Charity was like, since I didn't get to see last week, totally. Like it was still Charity finally trying to get that time that she never got, which makes it like even worse. And then at the end, when Brooklyn said, would you have done that to Jess? I was like, what does that mean? So is there like drama that we don't know between Charity and Kat, or like has Kat been like not only nice to Jess? Like, I wonder what that means, because that was like a very throwaway comment that I was like, that says something that we don't know about. Right. Kat and her maybe being a little cattier than we're seeing so far.
Sure, yeah, maybe there's more drama going on behind the scenes that they're not showing. And also, I didn't really understand the fact that why Brooklyn had to inject herself in the conversation with Charity and Kat at the end of the episode. I was like, let them go. I actually wanted to see their conversation. So I was kind of mad that didn't happen. So I would love to know, you know, what Charity really thought about it, because we never really got that, you know, closure on that conversation. But who knows, maybe it'll spill over into next episode. Let's talk about the Jess of it all. This really uncomfortable moment that a lot of people on social media are talking about, because she was right. Like you get further along in the relationship when you have a one-on-one date, and he's pretty much saying, no, that's not true. When every time that he's come off a one-on-one date, he's been like, oh, I'm basically like in love with this person.
Yeah, no, it goes both ways, right? Because at one point, Zach can only have so many one-on-ones. Like there are numbers. This is a numbers game. We don't know if he's even picking who he goes with. I know, I'm sure he has, some say, but like her frustration is obviously so valid. Yeah. And you can't fault her for using terms like one-on-one date when that's like literally what the show is based on. And it was so confusing because at first I almost like was like, okay, well, what's Zach supposed to say? Right. Like she's clearly getting emotional. She almost seemed like to me in the beginning, like she had her mind made up. Like she was just saying, there's nothing you can say, because I'm like so pissed I didn't get a one-on-one. But then he turned real quick because he kept saying, I'm so confident in us. And then he went, I'm not confident in us. Like, you have to leave. And I was like, oh, like, what does that mean, Zach? Like, that was really weird to me.
It was really weird to me. And it's almost like you can't have a conversation, like you can't disagree with him at all.
Right.
And then he gets mad and he's like, all right, I'll see you later. This is not what I want. Well, no, that's not how it works. Like, she's allowed to feel that way. She's allowed to feel like I'm not getting the time with you because she hasn't had it. She's having these 20-minute conversations with you at a group date. And she's supposed to be here to find her husband. I would probably totally get in my head at that moment too if I was the last person not to get on one-on-one date. And I'd be like, why am I here?
I know. The only thing I guess I'll argue as devil's advocate is I bet this conversation was longer than we saw.
Probably.
And he probably was like, how long are we going to talk about how you haven't gotten a one-on-one date? Like, I can't give everyone a one-on-one date. Like, maybe you'll get one next week. And like her saying, should I read into being last?
Yeah.
Like, is it maybe the right move? She should have just been like, I'm at this point where like, I felt like you would have wanted to see me. Like, we had this connection. It feels like it's dwindling. I'm surprised you haven't made more of an effort to give me validation and to get me that one-on-one based on our previous connection versus just putting emphasis on the order that we don't even know if he can control. But we did catch up. One of our reporters caught up with Jess at the Women Tell All. And she kind of said she was blindsided, but also was just like confused. Like, the conversation was just really confusing and frustrating on both of our ends. It wasn't a good feeling to sit there and be like, what should I have done? And she said she thinks it was 100% a misunderstanding and that Zach is an amazing guy. So I think that these two just like aren't on the same page at all. And I bet this conversation circled the drain for a long time.
Probably. And I hope we see the two of them get some closure on the Women Tell All, because like you said, like, she was confused, we were confused, and it's probably a much longer conversation. But it does seem like he is forming some really strong connections. I think, Katie, Gabby, and then Ariel got her one-on-one date during the nude sauna. But I feel like which was so weird. But I feel like they also have a strong connection too.
I hated the nude sauna. I was like, I would rather die. And then when they got in the hot tub, I was like, are you kidding me? And I really liked Ariel. Like I mentioned before, I think she kind of like, clearly she's been a calming, smart factor in the house. And I wish we'd gotten to see more of her, because I think I would really like her. And I liked the glimpses we saw, but it just made me laugh at the end when she was like, when Zach was like, wow, this is like a real surprise. Like, I feel like he was planning to send her home and was like, I just whatever. And then was like, oh, I actually like her. Like, oops, like I kind of was like writing her off, kind of the way we haven't seen her.
Sure.
But I think that it's so obvious to me that Gabby and Katie are his front runners. They get the first roses at every rose ceremony. They're getting the cute music. They're getting solo time. As viewers, we're watching it. They're getting it in real life and we're watching it. I think it's going to come down to those two. And I really don't know who's going to win, but I think Charity got the Bachelorette edit this episode. 100%.
Definitely got the Bachelorette edit. Like, she was cute, funny, up for anything. She had the story where she was like cheated on so many times and she's looking for love and finds it hard to trust people. She totally got the Bachelorette edit. And I would enjoy watching her. I like her. I think she's great.
100%. When she was talking to Zach about like the past like emotional abuse she's been through, like that just like feels like something that they would lean into, to be like, this girl who's awesome never felt like enough, and let's find a guy who's going to treat her like a queen. Like, that's a Bachelorette story. And then when they had her in that, or she was probably picked it, but that red dress she was wearing at the cocktail party rose ceremony, I was like, oh, that is a Bachelorette. I was loving it. And I think her and Zach like have a decent connection, but it's just nothing compared to the Katie and the Gabby. So I think that's what's going to happen. I think she's our Bachelorette.
I think so too. All right. Well, let's move on to our social spotlight. And like we said, a lot of people on social media were talking about this episode, including Nick Viall, who always has something to say. And he tweeted, that's 2 weeks in a row now. Zach was a total dick to one of the women. It's literally all about the one-on-one. Zach knows that. He made Jess feel like she messed up for expressing a valid concern. Pretty much just like what we said. I totally agree with. I actually agree with Nick on this one.
Ooh. And I assume he's talking last week about the Greer comment about the sales thing, which that was really interesting to me, because at first I was like, okay, that he is just so protective of being the Bachelor, and he doesn't want like people to downplay it and compare it to a sales job. But I do think that was Greer just trying to be relatable, and the way he was so quick to like, it's another example of like you said, like if you don't agree with Zach, he like shuts down and says like, you're wrong, instead of just being like, I don't see it that way. Or like, I'm upset that you're putting so much emphasis on the word one-on-one, but like, for me, I can't control it. I don't know. Like, I just feel like it does. And maybe it's just the way it's edited or what we see, but those two examples kind of feel like him not being able to agree to disagree, like just getting like angry. I don't know.
And then it also makes you like think back to like his fantasy suite with Rachel. Like, did he just not like what she had to say? And he was like, well, all right, well, goodbye. Like, I would love to know.
No, I thought the same thing. And when I last week's episode, I talked to Dr. Darcy, who's a relationship therapist, and she hadn't seen the scenes with Rachel. But when I was explaining it after the Greer thing, she was like, he's dismissive and he like isn't ready for open communication. And I was like, oh, like that's interesting. And this was just me like recapping it and like whatever. So we don't know him, but it's interesting because I do think Zach's a good guy and I think he wants this. I think he just maybe doesn't communicate the best, but I think that's also because he's a 26-year-old dude.
Right. Yeah. I think he like wants like this perfect person. And I think, you know, I hope it works out for him, but I think he's just putting so much emphasis on trying to find that perfect person and really wanting to make this work that, you know, I don't know. Sometimes when that happens, it feels like it's a recipe for disaster. Then it's just not going to work. I don't know, but hopefully they prove me wrong. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. All right. Well, that is it for this week's episode of Here for the Right Reasons. Like we said before, go and listen to Sarah's full interview with Clayton on the podcast. Let us know who you think is going to be the Bachelorette in the comments below, and we will see you guys next week.
Bye.
For more news, content, and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below and visit usmagazine.com.